Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. What I want to do is to create a distance calculator that allows the user to enter in the x and y value for two different points. So over here you see it says x value, y value, two different text boxes for point number 1, and then for point number 2 another set of x and y values. And then I want to be able to calculate the distance between those two and then place that data over here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to use the distance equation, which is the square root of the quantity x2 minus x1 squared plus quantity y2 minus y1 squared, and then the square root of that whole thing. I know that's hard to visualize right now because I said it as opposed to showing it to you, but I'll show you what the answer looks like when we're dealing with code. So what I did was I created these 4 text boxes. This one says txt.1x, txt.1y, txt.2x, txt.2y. Of course, we have a btn calculate distance button and an LBL result. So I don't need the toolbox. I'm going to close that. I don't need properties. I'm going to double click on the button so that we can start with the text. And of course, the first thing to do is to start off with your comments, such as declarations, get user input, calculation, and then finally output. Now, in the declarations section, I know that I'm going to need the points that were given to me by the user. So I'll do this. I'll say dim point 1x as. Now, I'm going to declare these as doubles because it could very well be that the answer is going to be 3 point something, 4 point something. So I want to be consistent with doubles, even though the user is probably just going to enter in integers. I still want to cover all my bases. So I'll make that a double. So I'll do the same thing for point 1y as a double, point 2x as a double, dim point 2y as a double. Okay. Finally, the goal is to calculate the distance. So I'll say distance as a double, because we're going to be plugging this information into the distance equation. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get the user input. So that means point 1x is going to be obtained from that text box. So I'd better convert this thing into a double, and that's going to be from txt. Now I'm not going to type any more. I just look at the list, and it says over here txt.1x. That's the one that I want. So I'll just double click that. Don't forget the dot text, the dot text. Let's do the same thing for point 1y. And again, I'm going to convert dot to double, whatever is inside of the text box, point 1y, which is this guy right here. Double click it, dot text. Let's do the same thing for point 2. I guess I could have copied and pasted the stuff above, but that's okay. I'll just type it in like this, txt.2x. Don't forget the dot text property. And then, of course, for 2y, convert dot to double, whatever is inside of the text box, txt.2y dot text. All right, so now what I've done is I've obtained the text from those text boxes and I've converted them into numbers. Now that I have the numbers, I can determine what the distance is. So the distance is going to be, well, first of all, it's going to be the square root of something. So I'm going to type in math.sqrt, open and close parentheses. I'm going to put the cursor right back into here. Now, that is going to be the square of x2 minus x1. So that's going to be math.pow, open and close parentheses. Well, first of all, I have to get the x2 minus x1. So I can just do this. I can just say point 2x minus 0.1x, comma, and then remember this is going to be squared, as you see on the board with the distance equation, so I'll just put the number 2 right here. That is going to be added to, okay, so I subtracted 0.2x from 0.1x. I'm going to square that result, and now and that's what the math.pow does. Now I'm going to add that to the y value, so math.pow, open and close a parens. Let me put my cursor right back into there. Now let's subtract the y values. So 0.2y minus 0.1y, comma, we're going to square that. So I'll put a 2.0 right over there. Okay, so that's the distance equation. It's basically the square root of, and then you have two separate parens, x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. So this is a translation of that distance equation. Now that I have that, I can display the results. So I can say something like this, LBL result.text, the distance, or how about this? Yeah, let's say the distance between these 2 points. So the distance from, and then I'll put a parens, and then I'm going to put the 2 points. So I'll ampersand that, and then I already have 0.1 x. I'll concatenate that with a comma, and then I'll concatenate that with 0.1y, concatenate that with a parens like this. So the distance from, and so in other words, if the point is 1, 2, this will say the distance from, and then it'll say parentheses 1, 2, close parens. So it'll make it like as if it's in point form. So the distance from this to, and then let's put the second point over here. So I'll concatenate that with 0.2x, and I'll concatenate that with a comma, and then concatenate that with 0.2y, and then I'll concatenate that with closing parens is, and then finally we want whatever that answer is. All right, and that's going to be distance. Enter. Now, I kind of cheated a little bit, and let me explain that. I am putting data into this label. Now, this label, specifically, I'm putting data into the text property. Well, that's not text. That's a double. This also is not text. Neither is this, this, or this. So, if I want Visual Basic to implicitly convert these numbers into strings, I can leave the code as is. Now, if I want to be a purist and technically convert these things on purpose, then I would have to do something like this. I would have to say convert dot to string within parentheses this value right here. Right? That would be technically correct because I'm converting these strings. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy and paste that. So I'll copy and paste that here, and then put a closing parens. Copy and paste that here, put a closing parens, and then for these last two, closing parens, and same thing for a distance. Again, in Visual Basic, you don't have to do this because it'll implicitly convert it for you. But if you wanted to be technically correct, you really should be converting these numbers into strings because you are concatenating them with other strings that will eventually be assigned to the text property of this label. All right, so let's see what happens. Let me run the code. And let's put in some values over here. So for example, if I were to put 1 and 1, say for example, and 4 and 4, what is the distance? So it's saying that the distance is this. Now, I forgot to put a space over here, and it looks like it's displaying way too many characters, so I'll have to make an adjustment to that. But right now, I just want to see if that's correct. So let me open up my calculator. Let's see, open up the calculator, and let's see what happens here. Okay, so we want to take the subtraction, right? So 1 minus 1, that's going to be, wait a minute, hold on for a second here. Sorry. Okay, so if I plug that into the equation over here, so if it's 1 minus 1, that's going to be 0. 0 squared is 0, and then we're going to add that to 4 minus 4. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the, I'm confusing these values. It's actually 4 minus 1. Sorry about that. That's why I was confused. All right, so let me close this. Okay, so 4 minus 1 equals, we square that, and that's going to be 9. And then the other option is 4 minus 1 quantity squared. That's going to be 9. So 9 plus 9 equals, what is the square root of that? So that's going to be this guy over here. It looks like it's 4.2426, which is exactly what we have over here. Okay. So the calculator works. Now, the one thing is I don't like that output. What I could do is this. Instead of distance like this, what I could do is I could limit the number of numbers that are going to be displayed after the decimal point. So I'll do something like this. Distance dot toString. I want a fixed amount of numbers, specifically 2 numbers. So what that F means give me only a fixed number of digits after the decimal point, specifically 2. So now if I run the program, I put the 1 and 1 over here and the 4 and the 4 over here. Notice I only get 2 numbers after the decimal point. I still have to put a space after that word is. So what I forgot to do over here is to place a space right there. And now the data is going to come out okay. All right. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.